of the slides, you're going to see some
Audio
reminders.
recording for this meeting has begun.
If you have any questions, please go ahead and type them. I'll answer them as we go along. And if Natasha didn't hear, she's probably explained all this already, so I apologize. If she has, just to make sure your phones are on mute, unless you have any, if in the chat you think you need to speak with a question rather than type it in, go ahead and just let us know that way, and we'll start and go ahead and answer any questions that you have as we go along. There's also below in the middle column, it says files, and that is where you will find your the webinar outline, the training outline, and the DVPI Purpose Area 1 project narrative checklist. And we'll talk about that a little bit as we go through the slides. So I need to calm down. I'm a little frazzled getting on this late. Okay, purpose of the TA webinar is to review and familiarize the grantees with important updates for the Year 1 project narrative and the Year 2 project narrative development. Number 2 is DVPI Purpose Area 1, review the goals and objectives. We did this in Denver, but we're going to go ahead and do it again because we need to make sure that everyone fully understands that the objectives are met in your Project 2 narrative. So you heard that in Denver, you're going to hear it again today. We're going to go over your project narrative requirements. Number 4, we're going to review what technical assistance is available to you as a grantee and answer any questions you may have. Learning objectives. So the participants will confirm next steps for project narrative development. You'll also learn from this to identify your overall goals and objectives for DVPI Purpose Area 1 as it relates to the project narrative. Participants will be able to identify and follow project narrative requirements and be able to identify technical assistance options and contacts available to them. So the important updates, and some of this you're going to know already since February 29th has come and gone. The Year 1 project narratives, during the kickoff meeting in Denver, we told everyone to move forward with your project narrative revisions for Project Year 1, but the Division of Grants Management and the Division of Behavioral Health met and concluded that the project narrative revisions for Year 1 do not need to be a current requirement since projects are currently in a planning phase and well into Year 1. So my slides just froze, and I don't know why.
Hey, Terry.
Yes? Did you guys lose me?
I can hear you, Terry. Would you like me to forward your slides for you?
Could you please? Thank you.
Are you finished with this page?
Yes, go ahead and change the slide. And let me catch up here. Okay. So Project Area 1 narrative revisions are no longer a requirement. Here I have to get rid of the sound on my computer. Okay, so the official contacts for all projects were emailed on Monday, February 1st to inform them that they're no longer required to submit project narrative revisions for Year 1. So in Denver, we told everyone to do that, and now we're saying it's no longer necessary. And they were also informed that in the same email that they could begin developing their Year 2 project narratives. Go ahead, Natasha. Next slide. So the Year 2 project narratives are going to be a requirement of the continuation application kit for all grantees. We did talk about that in Denver, that if you worked on your Year 1 revisions, they could be used towards your Year 2 project narratives. So if you already began your Year 1 revisions, that's fine. Just push that forward into making it just your Year 2 project narrative. They are part of the continuation application kit. Year 2 project narrative development should be the focus of the grantee awards moving forward. More information on the continuing application kits was sent out on February 29th to the contacts that we have. If you did not receive the information that was sent out on February 29th, please reach out to your program to see who does have that information. And that's the remaining information for the continuing application kits. Next slide.
Terry, this is
Yes?
Natasha. I
Uh-huh.
fixed the problem. Can you please try and see if you can forward the slide?
Great. Got it. Thanks.
Great. You're welcome.
Okay. So the DVPI purpose. So this is a review. The primary purpose of DVPI is to accomplish 6 overall goals. For DVPI Purpose Area 1, you'll be addressing these following goals. Number 1 is build tribal, urban, and federal capacity to provide coordinated community responses to Native victims of domestic and sexual violence. Number 2, increase access to domestic and sexual violence prevention, advocacy, crisis intervention, and behavioral health services for Native victims and their families. 3, promote trauma-informed services for Native victims of domestic and sexual violence and their families. 4, offer healthcare provider and community education on domestic and sexual violence. 5, respond to the healthcare needs of Native victims of domestic and sexual violence. And 6, incorporate culturally appropriate practices and/or faith-based services for Native victims of domestic and sexual violence. So those are the goals of DVPI. And how you meet those goals is through the objectives. And the objectives for Purpose Area 1 are going to be focused on the coordinated community response. Now, they're also the same objectives for Purpose Area 2. And so some of these will cross over. So, for example, Purpose Area 2 is the medical healthcare response for providing examinations to victims of sexual and domestic violence. Purpose Area 1 doesn't need to provide exams. But in your objectives, you need to address how you will link them to the physical exams. And on the flip side, Purpose Area 2, because they provide the medical aspect of care, they will not be doing the coordinated community response, but their objectives need to address how they link into the coordinated community response for domestic and sexual violence. That being said, Purpose Area 1 for the community aspect of care, we're going to go through those objectives, and so keep that in mind as we go through them. There are 8. You've heard them in Denver. You have them in your funding opportunity announcement, and we're going to go over them here. So expand crisis intervention, counseling, advocacy, behavioral health, and case management services to victims of domestic and sexual violence. Foster coalitions and networks to improve coordination and collaboration among victim service providers, healthcare providers, and other responders. 3, educate and train service providers on trauma, domestic violence, and sexual assault and its impact on victims. 4, promote community education for adults and youth on domestic and sexual violence. 5, improve organizational practices to improve services for individuals seeking services for domestic and sexual violence. Establish a coordinated community response with policies, protocols, and procedures to enhance domestic and sexual violence intervention and prevention. Integrate culturally appropriate practices and/or faith-based services to facilitate the social and emotional well-being of victims and their children. And the last one, implement trauma-informed care interventions to support victims and their children. So those are the objectives. So as you move forward into developing your Year 2 narratives, keep in mind that many awarded projects did not address DVPI purpose-specific objectives as required in the grant application for Year 1. That's why we told everyone to revise them, and now you no longer have to do that. Just make sure that as you move forward into Year 2, that you address each and every one of those objectives. So as we mentioned already. So these TA webinars are scheduled for projects to provide everyone with guidance on the requirements so that you're successful with developing your year 2 project narrative. So with that being said, don't panic. Number one, you're no longer to submit revisions for year 1. Number 2, from the time we met in Denver until the end of May, you've got a total of 4 months to develop your year 2 project narratives. And IHS will conduct these webinars. This is the last one through the first week of March 2016 to answer any questions that you have. So a lot of this should be familiar. You know what the objectives are. You know they're in the funding announcement. You just no longer have to do the year 1 revisions and just focus your work on year 2. So here's some questions. What if I have questions about this process or how to start writing my year 2 narratives? So your first point of contact for help in this is to contact your project officer, and they'll provide you with any technical assistance. And is it too soon to start working on year 2 narratives? No, start the revision process now. The sooner you start, the more time you have for questions and to receive guidance. So like I heard from one of my grantees who was wondering, because they got less money than they asked, and they were wondering how are they going to fit their budget to meet all those objectives. So we talked about ways for community education that aren't very expensive but are very effective with community education, like newsprint and doing a radio show and presenting to schools and college centers and other community venues. You don't have to spend a lot of money to do those things, but those are effective ways to get out into the community. So as you think of the projects you want to do, the activities for your objectives, think of ways that will fit into your budget that'll address the objectives, and don't forget to partner with other agencies and programs in your area. You don't have to carry the whole ball. There are other people who are doing similar work, and work together to enhance your program. Remember, you will submit your year 2 project narrative revisions as part of your continuation application kit. They will not be submitted separately, so you have to have your narrative done and ready when you complete your continuation application kit. And that information went out on email on February 29th, 2016, so just a couple days ago. Year 2 project narrative requirements. IHS strongly emphasizes the use of data and evidence in policymaking and program development and implementation. So applicants must identify one or more evidence-based practice, practice-based evidence, best or promising practice, and or local effort that they can plan to implement. So as you look at your activities and your objectives, make sure that they're following some kind of evidence-based or practice-based plan, or something that's promising that you've read or seen on the website, which has several examples of evidence-based practice that you can peruse to see where you want to move forward on this. So the website, the DVPI website, has a lot of information regarding evidence-based practice, things that are promising, but you can also do your own literature search and see what's out there. DVPI promotes the use and development of evidence-based and practice-based models that represent culturally appropriate prevention and treatment approaches to domestic violence and sexual assault from a community-driven context. In the application review information section of the funding announcement, refer to section B, page 28, for detailed instructions on how to write the project narrative. So just follow the instructions. It'll go through what the objectives are, and you should be good. When you're ready to begin developing your year 2 narrative, go to the funding announcement. It's the funding opportunity announcement. It's on the flash drives you received in Denver. You can also get a copy of it through going to the website. If you have any trouble with that, reach out to your project officer. They're your first line person to assist you with completing the continuation application and with the year 2 project narrative.
Excuse me. Hello?
Yes?
So I sent a notice, and I did hear you say reach out to your project officer, which I have already done. My concern is, though, if it didn't come to me on the email, I'm concerned that I'm, as the project director on this contract, that I'm not getting all of the emails. How do you, how do I deal with that?
Okay. Have you, let's see, who's your project officer?
Stephen Whitehorn?
Stephen. Let me send him, when we're done with this, can you email me and
Yeah.
CC and Stephen? And I will,
Yes. Stephen, I spoke with him this morning, and he said he would look into it, but I just want to make sure I'm on the listserv for, for funded sites, so that if I didn't get that, I'm concerned that I won't get important emails in the future.
right. So it's a good thing you brought it up. So email me, and Natasha and I know who has the master list, and we'll make sure that you get on that list.
Okay. Are you going to put your email on the chat or somewhere? Or is it on?
It's not on the chat, but I can give it to you. Maybe Natasha can put it up there. But
That'd be
my
great.
name's, so it's Teresa, Theresa dot friend.
Friend.
Dot friend, like I'm your buddy, at
Oh,
IHS.
singular friend? Sorry,
Friend.
singular?
Yep.
Friend.
FRIEND.
And then
Yes.
dot, IHS?
Teresa.friend at
Yeah.
IHS.gov.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Sure thing. Send that to me. We'll make sure that you get on the right list.
Right. I'm not sure how to, my phone was muted, so maybe Natasha can mute it, or you can tell me, is it *6, *7? I don't know how to mute my phone.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Hope it don't
Okay.
get too noisy. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay. So there really must have been some trouble in the original applications. Everyone here on these calls have been funded, so you have good projects, you have good ideas, you were funded. But there must have been some significant need to address the objectives, because we've gone over them in Denver. We went over them earlier in the slide set, and now we're going to go over them again. So the message here is make sure that you're addressing each and every one of the objectives when you do your year 2 project narrative. And they're on the slides, so we're going to go over them one more time. So DVPI, Purpose Area 1, specific objectives include expand crisis intervention, counseling, advocacy, behavioral health, and case management services to victims of domestic and sexual violence. Number 2, foster coalitions and networks to improve coordination and collaboration among victim service providers, healthcare providers, and other responders. Educate and train service providers on trauma, domestic violence, and sexual assault and its impact on victims. Promote community education for adults and youth on domestic and sexual violence. Improve organizational practices to improve services for individuals seeking services for domestic and sexual violence. Establish coordinated community response policies, protocols, and procedures to enhance domestic and sexual violence intervention and prevention. Integrate culturally appropriate practices and/or faith-based services to facilitate the social and emotional well-being of victims and their children, and implement trauma-informed care interventions to support victims and their children. So address each and every one of those objectives. They're also listed out in the FOA that you have on your flash drive that you can print out, and make sure that as you go through your narrative for year 2, that you address each and every one and check them off as you go. There's a checkoff sheet tool specific to DVPI. Purpose Area 1, like I said, is on the File section to the right of the slides. Download that and utilize it. It'll help make sure that you stay on track with your project narrative. Let's see. Confirm that the Year 2 project narrative addresses all the objectives. Okay, we said that. Review all project narrative activities and make sure they fit with and address the specific objectives, and make sure they fit your budget and that your budget narrative supports the activities. You'll be working on developing a year 2 budget narrative for the continuing application kit as a requirement as well. All grantee and awardees will work with their TA provider on their local data collection plan in project year 1 and in the beginning of project year 2. So this part is a little bit different. You're going to be working on your narrative and your budget as part of your continuation packet, and everyone should have gotten that on the 29th. And as we've already learned, somebody was left out of the loop, so we'll make sure that we connect them. But this part deals with your local data collection plan. All awardees are expected to finalize the local data collection plan by May of 2017. Revisions and submission of the local data collection plan are not required at this time, so you have more time for the data collection plan. That being said, work with your TA provider. Keep them in the loop on what your project narratives are and your budget and what your goals are so that they can help figure out how to do the local data collection plan. And who should you contact if you have questions? Like I said, number 1 is your project officer, grants management specialist for grant questions, and IHS program officials. So who are these people? So here are the MSPI, DVPI regional project officers for each of your areas. You'll notice that some of them say acting behind their names, and those positions are being held until they hire someone. And when they hire a new person, they'll get updated on what's going on. So you may at some point be contacted by someone who is not your project officer, now introducing them to you as their project officer. So if there's an acting next to the name of the person in your area, you can expect that to happen. IHS DVPI program official for DVPI is Lieutenant Commander Sean Bennett. He's great to work with. He's very responsive. If you're not getting what you need from your project officer, or if you and your project officer have an issue, Sean's the person we go to second. Andrew Diggs is your grants management specialist. His information is here. And for the TA providers, you probably all know your TA providers at this point. There are 11 tribal epidemiology centers and 1 urban Indian epicenter. And the TA provider's role is to provide guidance, provide technical assistance for evaluation and guidance / revisions to your required data collection plan. So your project officer helps with your narrative, and your TA provider helps with your data collection plan. All right, I know we had a rocky start. So here's a question. To clarify, the first year budget will remain the same through the next 4 years? As far as I know, yes. So just stick to your budget that you have, and if it changes, then you'll be notified of any changes. So at this point, expect to have that amount of money every 4 years, as long as your continuation project is refunded, and it should be. Just make sure you get your plans in before the deadline. Any other questions? So basically, if most of you are in Denver, no longer have to do the year 1 revisions, just work on your year 2 revisions, make sure you address every objective, make sure your activities support the objectives, and make sure your budget supports the activities. The continuation application information came out on February 29th. That's the rest of the packet. Your narrative and your continuation application will be submitted at the same time at the end of May. If you have any questions, reach out to your project officer. If there's questions beyond that you and your project officer need more guidance on, we'll all reach out to Sean. And Mr. Diggs is your grants management specialist. Are we good? Any worries, questions? Okay. Oh, someone's typing. Thank you. Okay, well, you're welcome, Summer. So I sent my email to everyone. I'm not your project officer, so reach out to them. But if somebody had a question for me specifically, I am the forensic consultant for the Indian Health Service dealing with issues for domestic and sexual violence.
Um, I, I thank you. I mean, this is, it's been helpful, just revisiting. I think when we were in Denver hearing the rewrite was necessary, started a lot of confusion for us. And when I brought that information back to our team, everybody was confused about it and what needed to be rewritten and all of that. So I'm looking forward to getting that kit. And it will say on the first of all, where is the DVPI page? Can you
The
help me out with
website,
that? Yeah, the website.
go to the IHS website and type in DVPI, and you'll be brought to the DVPI.
Okay, and then, God, I had part 2 of that and I forgot it, but let's see, for the TA, in Denver there were a couple of different people, and for the urban people, will it say somewhere who our TA provider is? So I'm seeming to be out of the loop on some of these emails that are important.
Right. Well, Urbans is overseen by the National Indian Health Board,
Okay,
NIHB.
got it, got it. Okay, so I can just look them up. I'll find them. And then who knows, maybe I
Robert
have
Foley.
Robert Foley?
Robert Foley, yeah.
Got it.
And he's, okay.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I really
You're
appreciate it.
welcome. Yeah.
Yep.
Any other questions? Oh, and make sure you send me that email so I have your contact
I'm going
information.
to do that as soon as we disconnect. I'm trying to download all of the, download all these downloads.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions? Okay, everyone, I apologize again for starting late, but we were slotted with an hour time, and it's not quite 20 up, so sorry for the late start, but we're good.
Okay, perfect.
Is that you, Natasha?
No, I'm still here.
Okay.
Oh, I'm still here. I guess I'll hang up. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, thanks.
All right.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
You're welcome.